Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome to Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. I'm your host, John Johnson, and in this episode, one of the things that I'm going to talk about is, are you relationship ready? What happens after you've had a breakup? You go through a period of the separation, maybe you have some anxiety about that, and you kind of want to get into a new relationship. If that's what you feel is in store for you, what's in the cards for you. Are you ready for that? I think you need to do some homework. I think there's an opportunity to find out and really understand what went wrong in the other relationship. It's never just one person's fault. I know it's easy to want to blame the other person that's no longer here with you for your problems, but you really have to do a little bit of soul searching here. And what we want to examine is, are you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially ready to pick up with a new relationship? Let's think about the mentality. When your relationship is ended, what are the feelings that you're going through? You're probably feeling defeated, feeling unappreciated. You might even be really self-conscious. You might have had comments made about your looks, along those lines. And where that leaves you is leaves you kind of splayed open, leaves you kind of cut. That's not a very good feeling. So how do you reclaim that? Well, you're going to have to do some self-work. It might be reading a book, going and doing things on your own so you can sort of reclaim some of that self that you might have lost when you're in that last relationship. But recognizing that you need to be a whole person so that you can bring something to a relationship. One of the things that I think we tend to forget in being in a relationship is bringing yourself means you also have to learn how to take care of yourself. We're so used to being in relationships and sacrificing for the good of all, but you sacrifice yourself and you forget the self-care. And that could be anything from just taking the moments to take a breath in between one thing to the next because you're feeling stressed. You're running from one appointment to the next to the next. It could mean taking the time to do a hair appointment, do a nail appointment, read a book for yourself. You got to learn how in your day-to-day to carve out time for you so that you can reclaim your sanity, so to speak, because without that, this stuff falls apart. And it's really interesting how caretakers, how nurturers tend to forget themselves in the whole process. It's easy to do because you line yourself with or you give yourself all of these tasks to do in a day, and you want to get them done. You want to feel like you've accomplished something at the end of your day. Okay, I did all this. Hit your list, hit your punch list, and then you're finished. Well, how do you feel like at the end of all of that? Do you feel rejuvenated? Do you feel refreshed? Do you feel relieved that you took care of all of that? Well, I wonder. So it's important that you learn how to take care of yourself. Now, physically, and what I'm talking about physical, it's not always just about appearance here, but there's that aspect of, are you physically ready to take on a new relationship? Are you relationship ready? And quite often, when the relationships tend to go bad, one of the things that we do is we tend to find our relief in food, eating. Well, if you haven't been eating healthy before, you're probably not doing it now. And that's something to look at. Are you eating healthy? Because I know for me, eating really affects my mood. I used to eat a lot of junk food, and it was because it was convenient. And that's kind of what we do. We grab for convenience. Well, it affected my mood a great deal, and that has an impact on the relationship. It certainly affected how people saw me, because you could just see, I would go through mood swings. And if you're like some people that have a sensitivity to food, some people are real sensitive to sugar, or when they get that drop in blood sugar, all of a sudden, they feel like they want to fall asleep. Whatever is in your existence, you need to know something about yourself and take care of you physically in that way. And if you have bad habits in eating, now's an opportunity to really look at that and fix it. I know that body image is important to a lot of us. And while that may be the case, it's something that will fix itself when you do a better job of taking care of yourself, when you begin to look at those things that you've been neglecting for a long time. And all the signals are there. If it's your clothes that don't fit, and maybe sometimes it could be the looks that you get from individuals. But I think you can, I give yourself the benefit of the doubt that you're qualified enough to start looking at those things and make an assessment, make a judgment about that, and be kind to yourself, though. I mean, when I say judgment, I don't mean to beat yourself up, because sometimes with relationships, we tend to get a negative self-image, especially when it goes bad, and people leave us pretty hurt and bruised. But we're talking about the future now. So the thing is to give yourself that, take care of yourself physically. Now, emotionally, this one is probably the big one in all of this, because it sort of touches on all these other areas. Are you emotionally ready for a relationship? I mean, if you've been beaten and bruised emotionally from the last one, if you're trying to jump into a relationship real quick, that's going to turn out to be a rebound. And I know from being a guy that when a woman has just left a relationship, the thing that I'm going to be paying attention to is how fast she's getting into the next one. Because usually the first relationship is the rebound relationship, unless you've taken some serious time to work on yourself and can talk about some of the differences, some of the growth that you've had in that period of time. And the growth I'm talking about is real growth. And this isn't about just talking about the old boyfriend and everything he ever did, because this growth thing is more important to you than the past relationship. You see, you have to say to yourself, okay, these are the things that I did that didn't work. These are the things that are part of a relationship that doesn't work for me, and I'm going to work to change that. And, write these things down, because it'd be interesting to find out where you are when things go bad, and then giving yourself time to improve who you are, to work on on the things that need to be worked on, and keep a diary. I think that is an excellent way to track this thing. And then look backwards on it and say, okay, I've checked that off. I've checked that off. And now I'm kind of thinking about what I can bring that's fresh to the new relationship. And this also gives you a good starting off point that when you're talking to your potential next relationship, next guy or next girl, or whichever it works for you, you can begin to ask them some probing questions so that you don't repeat the mistakes that you've made. Because it's when you keep doing the same thing over and over and getting those bad results, it's like insanity. And why keep doing that? Time is precious. Your time is precious. So invest in yourself enough so that you don't have to keep repeating the mistakes of the past. And I think you'll reap the benefits. Another thing is spirituality. And however that works for you, whether it's church, investing time in that, take time to do that for yourself. Be at peace. So often we get invested in life, and there's this constant stream of noise where you've got the music going on all the time. You're constantly on the cell phone. And by the way, I think that when you are with a date, the cell phone should be put away. That is personal time between you and your significant other, to be able to say, we are the priority here, and not the cell phone going off or anything like that. Put that thing on silent, put it away. But again, that helps you know when your significant other is willing to make you the priority because this is what's going on. That's something that's worth investing in, because this doesn't happen every day. Because we're in a culture that it's like cell phone is king, and being disturbed and interrupted is okay. I don't think it is. I think you should learn to take the time between all of those other distractions and the person you're with and make them the priority, and then expect that, because that's worth investing in. I've always said that the person who's willing to deal with you and your existence is a person that's worth investing your time in, because people like that don't come along every day, and you'll find out pretty quick what kind of person that they are. And one other thing I want to mention too is, are you financially ready for a relationship? Because I realize everything doesn't have to cost money. It's not about always having the money, but sometimes some relationships leave you in a financial bind, and you've got to get untangled from that. And being able to take the time out for yourself, being able to reinvest in yourself, if it means getting books from the library so that you can do self-help, and it may even mean do some financial counseling, may even mean getting some therapy. These are the kind of things that you can invest in yourself before you get into the next relationship, because this teaches you what to look for, what to ask about, and it creates interesting conversations between you and the next person. Because I guarantee when you can bring that kind of depth to a conversation with a new potential partner, they're going to respect you for it. And it's good to expect answers. It gives you a launching off point, and it gives you a reason to come back to the conversation later. I think it's great when people do that work on themselves and show the growth, show the improvement, and sort of like, surprise, it's the new me. Because it's not always about the clothes that you put on, because that I call window dressing. Yeah, you can get their nails done, their hair done, get the nice shoes and all of that. But when you go beyond that, again, that's the exterior. How do they say it? Beauty fades, but it's what's on the inside that matters. I think that's something that's worth understanding about yourself and bringing that to the table. And again, when you're able to do that, you can bring it. I don't think you should ask anyone to bring something to the relationship that you can't bring yourself. Be willing to do that. So all that work on self, that's excellent. That's gold. And you can't do any better than working on yourself. In my next segment, I'm going to talk about a personal profile. What should you include? And we'll be right back after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
I've looked at a lot of profiles on the internet, and there are some that stand out, and there are others that just stand out for the wrong reason. Those that stand out and work are those that have a clear picture of what you look like. Presently look like. If you want to put in some pictures of what you used to look like years ago and then show a progression, at least be honest about the date when the picture was taken, or at least reasonable. A lot of people want to see pictures that are probably no older than 6 months, at least for that. If you're going to put in 1 or 2 pictures, and I usually like to say at least 3, then that gives you some sort of variety. And it doesn't have to be risque. The whole idea is, and I'd also like to see a smile. There are a lot of photographs of people looking, you're just looking into the camera, if you're looking, and you don't smile. Well, that's not very enticing. So smile, and also don't hide your face. There are so many profiles out there that it seems to cover a woman's face, and you can't even figure out how they could even put that on and not even recognize it. Look, we can't see it. I know maybe they're trying to give you a shot of their body and you want to see the shape and things, but principally we want to see your face. And now, one of my pet peeves is, I like animals. Don't get me wrong. I love bunnies and cats and dogs, and if you like horses and things, that's great. I like it. But sometimes you do a little too much with those pictures. We can't see you. Now, if you're riding the horse, that's great. It shows that you ride horses. But just taking pictures of things and shots that you had on your vacation while you were traveling, you could kind of talk about that. Maybe you can put that in your bio that you like to travel to places. But taking a bunch of pictures of sunsets and things, again, is cute, but it's not necessarily giving me an idea of who you are. If I see a couple of pictures of you and then you put in your bio that you like to travel, that you're into wine tasting and that you like animals, that you got kids, that's going to show up there. And be honest about your height and weight, because there's nothing more disappointing than meeting somebody and it looks like they don't tell the truth. Now, men have the same problem. Men will lie about their appearance because they think that they have to do that in order to attract someone. And women, you know what I'm talking about. You look at a profile. You're thinking that the guy is got the nice goatee. He is trim and fit. And even sometimes they'll show you pictures of them with their military buddies, and he's wearing a uniform. So you figured, okay, yeah, good, he's going to look like that. And then you meet the guy. Big disappointment. He could barely fit the pair of pants he's got on. I'm telling you, there's nothing more of a turnoff than a person not telling the truth about who they are. And it's the same for guys. When they go and meet someone, if your hair is a different color than in the picture, well, if it's styled really nice, I don't think that matters. But if you're in the picture and you're a brunette, but yet when they meet you, you're not, meaning you've got a lot of your roots are showing, you have to fix that, because that's not what I call date ready. You need to be ready to meet somebody and make a good first impression. And I'm not talking fraud here. I mean, be who you are. Another example of things is, as I was talking about 2 or 3 pictures. Now, if you happen to go to museums or you like car shows or you like motorcycles and things, again, be in the picture. And here's another thing. If you're in the picture, tell us which one you are. Because oftentimes you'll take a picture of someone and they're at a Halloween costume party or something, and you can't even tell which, is it the one in the middle? Is it the one on the right? Is it the one on the left? Because a lot of times you're standing with people and we can't figure out which one you are. It's really important that we know which one you are. So put that in the caption so we can see you. That really helps, because I've seen, again, lots of pictures when I couldn't figure out which one. And sometimes you might not even be the one in the picture. You're putting pictures of your kids and things. Well, I as a security issue, I personally don't do that. I think, I've seen people that have kind of blurred the images of the faces of the kids out, and that's just for security. I think if it's your picture, then it should be a picture of you and not necessarily of your friends and people like that, because they may not want to be on the internet, because, once this stuff gets out there, it's out there forever. I did one of my earlier podcasts, I talked about social media and how this thing gets exponential. Well, when you think about it, once you put it out there, it's out there forever and ever. And other people may not necessarily want their images and their likenesses out there. So that's just a consideration for etiquette. Something else to consider when you're writing a profile is put in what you want. What are your expectations? I know there are a lot of profiles that don't have that information, and sometimes it's because it's been carried over from a related website, and because one company may have different types of demographics that they're trying to target, they say, well, maybe you want to be on this other website, and you say yes, so they port some of the information over, but there's really no details. Well, you should be sure that you put something in your profile that represents what you want. And if it's on a related website, chase over to that website and look at it and see what your profile looks like. It's so funny to think that people don't really know what their profile looks like from the other end. And you should look at it and see, what are people seeing about you? But back to what you put in a profile. If you want a guy that's a certain height or a certain ethnicity, put that down, because I'm sure that it's not something that you want to necessarily do is reject a bunch of people or when you're not finding the kind of guy in your inbox that you're looking for, but you're getting a bunch of these others. It might be because you're not specific enough. And you may be attractive to a lot of people. So, see that as a compliment. But by and large, put in what you're looking for part of your bio or your profile, specifically what you're looking for. Again, height, weight, region of the country. Because you got some people that'll be on the East Coast and they're clicking on profiles on the West Coast and saying hi. And that if you want to do a long distance relationship, put that in there. But if you don't, make it clear, hey, I'm not into long distance relationships. I think guys will get the idea. But that's an important step because, when it comes to romance, a lot of people are willing to chase a lot of things. But for your specific taste, remember that if you're getting hits from other profile people and it's not what you're looking for, you're probably not specific enough. And it's definitely good to be polite, but be direct. Let people know what you're looking for. And I think it'll cut down on the traffic, because one of the things that I think happens to guys is they think that they have to be persistent. I mean, they keep hitting this profile, keep hitting the profile, and you may not even want to talk to that guy. So it might be nice to say it in a nice way. Hi, thank you, but I'm not interested. Good luck in your search. I mean, that's a nice way of turning someone down without being rude about it. And I guess if it really gets bad, you can block someone from seeing your profile, and that will get the message across, and they'll just go on to someone else. One other thing to think about is that when you're building your profile, it's not necessary to talk about all your past relationships, not on the profile. Because if I'm a guy and I'm reading that about a woman, that to me signals drama. I mean, we've all had relationship disasters, but it's not necessary to put that in your profile, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a welcome space. You're trying to give a representation of who you are in a positive way. And when you start bringing in baggage, it really suggests that you have not worked through your stuff. And I think any guy looking at that, he's probably not going to take you serious. Women say that they don't want one night stands, or they don't want friends with benefits. But when you're putting nothing but drama out there, you probably are attracting the kinds of people and not making that real for yourself to say, hey, I don't want this kind of person, and stick to your guns. Again, make it clear, be concise, and if you find someone that you're attracted to, then, hey, make some communication, make it happen. And as a person who's had a profile or two, I think one of the things that really bugs me the most is I like to actually have a conversation with the person. I don't want to be on the internet just sending messages back and forth. So I'm the person who would say, hey, if you're really willing to meet with me, I appreciate that you trust, and I really respect a woman, because I understand that there's things that happen to women that they're afraid, that they don't want to put themselves out there or take a risk of meeting a nutcase, because there's plenty of them out there. But I appreciate a woman who's willing to take the risk, and I acknowledge that, because we all want to do this and be safe. But I'm not the person who's going to do the endless emailing back and forth. Because if I can't have a conversation with you at least, because I like to put a voice with a face, then I'm going to move on. And that's just me. And if you happen to have you meet somebody and it doesn't work out, well, tell them. Say, hey, you know what? It was great meeting you, but I don't think it's for me. And you'll be respected for that. So again, to recap, when you're building your profile, good, clear pictures of you. And if you're in a picture with other individuals, tell us which one you are. You don't need a lot of pictures of all the places that you've traveled to. You can kind of build that in your profile. Tell what you're interested in, and, have fun. Next up, I'm going to talk about the subject of suicide.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back. I want to talk about a subject that I think is merits a discussion here. And for those of you that have been affected by it, my heart goes out to you, and I'm going to talk about suicide. The Center for Disease Control has a website, and if you're interested in a lot of facts and figures and statistics, you can go on their website and pull up some of the key findings. And there has definitely been an increase in suicide in the United States from the years 1999 to 2014. And this study, it compiles a lot of numbers, and I'm not going to bore you with a lot of numbers. But the reason I'm talking about the subject is because we do talk about relationships. And there are those people in our experience who, when they're suffering from depression, there might be an incident where they would consider this. Now, I'm talking about a subject which is different from medically assisted suicide. That is a whole different topic, and I'm not covering that here. But I'm talking about the experience of people who, for whatever reason, want to do self-harm, such as cutting, or those who want to kill themselves with either a gun or driving a car off a road or any one of these other lethal methods. Now, the thing to consider is if you know someone who is thinking about committing suicide, the fact that you open the discussion and talk to them about it is not going to cause them to commit suicide. Okay? So I want to dispel that. We need to be able to talk to a person about how they feel, to get their feelings and their emotions out there, and that will help take the intensity off of this. Because if they're talking to you, they're probably less likely to do something. But something that I want you to be aware of is there is a phone number that you can call. And if you want to get help for somebody who is thinking about suicide, I want to give that number to you. And that number is 800-273-8255. And again, that number is 800-273-8255. Now, something to know is suicides do happen in clusters. Young people are very influenced, are very influential. And if one of their classmates, let's say, I'm talking about that age range of kids who are in, could be elementary school, could be middle school, could be high school. One of their classmates has gone through something so traumatic, and then they take their own life. There could be other people, because young people are very impressionable. They may take that as a sign and do something in sympathy of that and take their own life. And so one of the concerns that people who are crisis line volunteers, and again, there are statistics that support this, is that they begin to be very concerned about what's happening in clusters. So when a kid happens to commit suicide in a school or something like that, they reach out to the youngsters as fast as possible to try to find out what's going on, to get behind it. Is there bullying? Is there something that was going on in the home? Things of that nature. So it's really important. And I want to talk about this because it's, in the process of being in relationships, we find out lots of things about people. And don't be afraid to talk about it. At least get the conversation going. I've given you a phone number that you can begin to start the conversation, give it to somebody, pass it out, talk to your friends, talk to your relatives, your children, your sisters, your brothers, your parents, because this is something that's happening across all age ranges. Believe it. It's real. It's something that happens, and I'll give you an illustration of something. When you have a secret and you've been exposed, the feeling of being exposed can be overwhelming. It's something that a lot of people can't handle. They emotionally can't handle it, and they figure the only way out is to kill themselves. So this is a reason why it's important to not be bullying someone. If somebody has held you in confidence, personal things, you don't take an opportunity just because you're mad at them to go spouting off things that they've told you in confidence. It's things like this cause people to feel very trapped. And in one of my earlier podcasts, I talked about relationship conflict and how not to back somebody into a corner. And telling someone's secrets obviously feels to the person like they've been backed into a corner, because some of these things can be very embarrassing to reveal. And people need to learn to find ways to work through things. And there are counselors that help with this all the time. They can deal with grief. They can deal with trauma. But the subject of this is so important that it's tragic when it happens, and oftentimes people are surprised when it happens. But when you do a case history on someone and you look at the series of events that have led up to it, it could have been prevented. And this is what I want you to do, is to be mindful of what you say to people. And when you see something is going on, speak to it. Don't let it go unspoken about, unnoticed, or just don't sweep it under the rug. Somebody's life can be in the balance. Yeah, and one other thing, and this is something that crisis line volunteers understand, that these are transitory moments. When that person feels that they are hopeless, that there's nothing else left to do, it's about keeping them in conversation, keeping it real. You never make a promise to a person that you can't keep. And sometimes this happens when, the crisis moment, say a relationship breaks up and they're so despondent that that person is no longer going to be in their life. Well, you can't promise them that this other person's ever going to come back. But what you can do is you can say, I'm going to get you help. We can work through this. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we can work through this. And again, I've given you the number, 1-800-273-8255. And if you're ever in that situation yourself, please call. Your life is worth it. I'm John Johnson, and this is the Relationship Podcast, Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast.